4 laws of business. Number 1, be fruitful. Okay, this is where business begins. The word fruitful in Hebrew means productive. It doesn't mean to have children. I was shocked when I discovered that. The first command God gave man was what? Be productive. In other words, produce something. Say it. Be productive. Stop saying fruitful because you're thinking about babies. Tell your neighbor, be productive. Be productive. No, say it this way. Produce something that I could buy. That's the first command. Now, here's something important to remember. The first command is to be what? Fruitful. The first command should have been be seedful, because fruit is a result of seed. You can't have fruit unless you have a seed that has a tree that bear fruit. God ignores the entire first step. Look at me, man. Just get deep now. God said, look, I even ain't going to talk about seed. Oh, you still ain't got it. Listen, when God demands something from you, it exists. So the demand for fruit is a presumption that there is seed somewhere. The number 1 reason why there's poverty in North Tulsa is not because of a lack of investors coming in, but a lack of productivity inside. Listen. Here's how you measure a nation's wealth. Listen carefully. A nation's wealth is measured by 3 letters. All nations. Gross national productivity. In other words, if the nation ain't producing, they call it poor in the UN. Money doesn't make you rich. Productivity does. That's why China is one of the biggest threats right now. Even though they may be poor, they are producing. What do most people in the North Tulsa do? Consume. You keep going to the bank to borrow money to buy stuff that isn't productive. I mean, if you're going to buy a vehicle, buy a truck so you can become one who collects garbage to produce a business. Don't buy a car to drive around in. That ain't productive. The command presumes that seed exists in you right now. There's a seed. That's your business. And God says, show me the fruit of it. Produce something. Now, when you produce a product, watch God's strategy now. Let's say, okay, Apple computer. Stephen Jobs quit school because he had an idea. Everybody say idea. That's your seed. Your seed is the idea that won't quit. This guy had an idea. He went to visit a plant to see a computer. And he went and he saw this computer, and the computer was big as half of this room. He looked at it, he says, why can't they reduce that to the size of a desk? And he walked out. And he kept seeing visions of that great massive computer the size of a room on a desk. I wonder what you see that won't leave you alone. Write this down. Every problem is a business. I'll say it again. Every problem is a business. One man see bare feet, that's a problem. The other one see a shoe company, that's a business. One man see a hog island, that's a problem. Another man sees a resort, that's a business. Produce your seed. Produce your fruit. And then the second command, multiply. You know, when you produce a product, then you got to reproduce it. If you cannot reproduce what you've produced, you're going to be poor. One of the keys of successful business is being able to reproduce your product 1,000,000 times more. Any good company that wants to succeed must be able to follow God's second command, to multiply. So that's why when you want to, you see, there was only one Burger King years ago, one restaurant that sold one Burger King. They refined, everybody say refined, they produced a fruit. burgers, but they produce a unique burger called a Whopper. Come on, somebody. Now, you make burgers at home, don't you? But when you want a Whopper, you go straight to Burger King. Even though you got the same bread and beef and all this stuff, you still, why? Because they refined it. Everybody say refined it. I'm talking about. See, you got to take your seed and produce a fruit, and you refine it first. If you're going to be a cosmetologist, you still ain't going to be wealthy. Because anybody can be a cosmetologist. You got to find what kind of cosmetologist you will be. What are you going to specialize in? Everybody sells burgers, but no one sells a Whopper. What's your Whopper? That's the question. Now watch Burger King. Burger King then takes this Whopper sandwich that they refined, and they developed a system. Everybody say system. To reproduce the same Whopper every time. So when I went to Mexico one day, we went to Burger King. The same Whopper came out in Mexico. We went down to Venezuela, Burger King. The same Whopper. We were in Ukraine, in Russia. The same. I said, how can the same Whopper be in every country? Because they reproduce. I poured. They only developed one prototype, one prototype. And they kept testing it and testing it. One prototype. And when they got that one prototype down to a science, that's the fruit. Then they said, okay, now let's assembly line. And they start multiplying. What you cannot multiply, you can never succeed in. My message is my fruit. Leadership, kingdom, purpose. They're my fruit. Now I got to put them in a form where they can be multiplied. So now I got to shift into books and CDs and DVDs and they're in 25 different languages. I got to multiply. Same message. If you want a Big Mac, you can never get it from Burger King. Because Big Mac is McDonald's fruit. And they keep reproducing it. God's third command. Replenish is a big one. If you're going to be successful in business, you got to be able to distribute your product. You got to develop a distribution system. Okay, Walden, bless his heart, had one store. He said, okay, I got my fruit. I got a store where you can actually come in and get wholesale prices, man. The guy had one store. That's number one. Number two, he decided, I want to follow God's second command. I want to multiply. So he created a system to reproduce Walmarts all over the world. Number three, he said, now I'm going to distribute my products to those stores. Walmart got his own distribution system. What about yours? And God's fourth command, business, subdue. Subdue means you control the market. To subdue means to control. If you do not control your market, you will die poor. Simple, isn't it? Bill Gates was so successful in following God's commands that Congress had to call him in. Remember? He was so dominating in the market. They said, you got to break up your company. We can't have you controlling the whole world like this. Why? He subdued the market. If you wanted anything to do with software and computers, got to come through Microsoft. Can I put it another way? Subdue means when anybody wants a product like yours, you're the first one they think about. Subdue.